Felicitous greetings, fellow fanatics. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Fanatic, and today we're taking a look at High Noon, a card-driven, lightweight tactical skirmish game by High Noon Game Incorporated. Yes, they did name their company after their first game. It doesn't affect the review score at all, but if you're thinking of starting a game company, I highly discourage you from doing the same. Also of note, while this is not a review copy, I did win this copy in a contest. So I would like to thank both the developers and Everything Board Games for hosting such. So without further ado, let's dive in. Set in the fictional Old West town of Sweetwater Gulch, Saratoga, in High Noon, 2 to 4 players will each take control of a posse of figures and battle it out for survival. Players will have 12 rounds to collect as much gold as possible by damaging enemies and collecting bounties on them. Each posse has their own unique deck of cards which will be used to perform actions, but they will also have the option of investing time to pick up items from supply crates littered throughout the battlefield, so which will be more useful for them than others. You'll have to be both clever and lucky if you want to survive staring down your opponent's barrel. To start the game, each player needs to choose a posse, but you have the option of picking from Sheriff Garrett and his deputy, the Leroy brothers and their gang, Elsu's warband, or Colonel Rogers and his Rough Riders. Each posse has their own starting tile which must be included when playing with them. For simplicity's sake, we'll simply be using the recommended map setup for this review. Each character has a designated starting position, and if you're playing as the Leroy gang or the Rough Riders, you'll notice that some minor characters are repeated and numbered. To identify these, note the notches on the bottom of the figure which are used to keep track of which is which. You'll take a red poker chip token for each character and place it on the top right corner of their character's health tracker to show that they're uninjured. You'll also take a blue poker chip token and place it on the one spot on the pocket watch, which is used to keep track of the current round. After that, players will set up loot crates, randomly placing one in each of the green squares on the map, and then placing 3 more per player before flipping them over. You'll shuffle the 3 item decks as well as that of the posse you're playing as. Each player draws 5 cards, and you're ready to begin. A round in High Noon consists of a single player going through 3 turn phases, and each other player getting a chance to do the same. The first phase of each round is movement. You have the option of moving any and all of your figures up to the movement value listed on their card, which will be 4 for most figures. Movement is pretty straightforward, though there are 2 things to keep in mind here. Firstly, spaces are always counted orthogonally. While you may slip through diagonally if needed, it still counts as moving 2 spaces. Secondly, orange spaces are obstacles which may be moved through at the cost of 1 extra movement point, but you cannot stop on them. After you've moved as many of your figures as you wish, you advance to the action phase. In the action phase, each figure you control may take a single action. The biggest use of this is playing a card, but we'll get back to that in a moment. They may also loot a crate. When they do so, they'll check the symbol on the crate token and draw 3 cards from the matching deck, discarding 2 and keeping 1. They'll place the item card near the character sheet in question to show it's now in their possession and flip over the token to show that the crate is now empty, though it continues to act as an obstacle on the battlefield. Some items require an action to equip them, which a player may do if they have the appropriate card. Alternatively, an item may be better suited for a teammate, so a figure may pass an item to an adjacent figure as their action. Of course, not everyone is likely to survive a firefight, and players may also use an action to loot a corpse, taking all the items they had on them when they took their final breath. Or if an item is simply not of use, it can simply be discarded without having to take an action. But the biggest thing you'll be doing in High Noon is playing cards. These can either be item cards that you've picked up from loot crates, or the cards in your hand that you've drawn from your posse's deck. Cards from your deck will specify 1 or more characters that can use them, and the most powerful abilities can only be activated by a single figure. Although cards are most commonly used to attack and defend, they can serve all sorts of purposes, including granting extra movement, healing, peeking an opponent's hand, and more. Most posse cards require an action to be played, and are then discarded immediately after use. However, many items, especially weapons, can be used multiple times. You'll place a blue token on them when you first obtain the card, then move it each time to track how many times it's been used, discarding it after the last use. Which brings us to attacking and defending. If using an item to attack, it has its own inherent range listed on the card. If playing a card from your posse deck, you'll use the character's own range as listed on their character sheet. In order to attack, you must have a straight line of sight horizontally, vertically, or along the 4 main diagonals. Keep in mind that once again, diagonals count as 2 spaces each. To attack, you declare which attacker is firing, in this case Sheriff Garrett, and who they are attacking. In our example, Leroy Gang member number 2. Sheriff Garrett plays the law round here, which has an attack value of 5. The gangster only has 5 health, so an unmitigated shot would kill him outright. To this point in purpose, he plays a defense card from his hand. Basic cards can be used for either attack or defense, but you'll have to choose which you're using them as. In this case, it blocks 2 damage, meaning they'll still take 3. However, players will also have to consider the cover that terrain provides in certain situations. In this example, they'll play the same cards. However, since the wagon is between the sheriff and his target, we take the 3 damage and halve it. That gives us 1.5. Whenever there's a half, we round up, bringing it to a total of 2 damage. Keep in mind that the damage is only halved once, no matter how many spaces of cover are between the attacker and defender. However, an attacking figure ignores the penalty caused by cover if they're adjacent to it, allowing them to gain full benefits without taking the penalty themselves. The third and final phase of each round is the draw phase.
Hey, Etch, draw!
This phase is pretty straightforward. First, you check the cards in your hand and discard down to 9 if necessary. After that, you draw 3 cards from your deck. Then, if you've dealt any damage during your turn, and only during your own turn, you take a single gold piece as a victory point. Gold pieces can also be gained by finishing off enemy characters. Each character has a value ranging from 1 to 3, and whoever gets a final hit on them gets the reward, even if it's not their own turn. Be careful when playing with more than 2 players, as weakening a high value target may allow another player to swoop in and reap the rewards for themselves. Play will alternate between players, continuing until one of 2 end conditions is met. If the game goes for a full 12 rounds, then players count up their gold and whoever has the most wins, but they must have at least 1 character alive to remain in the running. Alternatively, if only 1 posse is left standing, then the game ends immediately with the survivors winning. Component-wise, the game is pretty solid. Figures are sufficiently detailed, while cards are of decent thickness. Map tiles may be thinner than expected, but that's because they're made out of plastic and are just as sturdy as their thicker cardboard counterparts, if not more so. However, the rulebook leaves a bit to be desired. It's pretty oversized for how simple the game is, and there's a lot of dead space in there. Also included with each copy is a map of the fictional state of Saratoga, where the game takes place. I know most players probably won't care since it's not an RPG, this left me wishing they went into more detail on the lore behind the game's world. The game does include a plastic insert, but it's honestly pretty weak. I'm probably going to try and figure out an alternative storage solution once I can figure out a good way to protect the minis in the process. I do feel that I should briefly warn that one of the characters in the game is racist. That is not the same as saying that the game itself is racist. However, if you're sensitive to such things, you may want to pass on this one, or at least avoid playing as Colonel Rogers. All in all, High Noon is an enjoyable title. It's a fun, fast-paced skirmish game that invokes a lot of memories of playing Star Wars Epic Duels back in high school. More on that after the conclusion. Each posse plays differently with their own unique strengths and weaknesses. Although I do wish that deal extra damage to certain faction cards didn't exist in a game with pre-constructed decks. Item cards do add a bit of a luck element, but since you're able to draw 3 and keep the one you want, it does minimize this to a degree. And beyond that, you do have the option of simply ignoring the items and trying to go for your foes directly if you feel they're not worth the effort. There is the problem that sometimes you'll simply not have the card necessary for a figure to act. This can certainly be a problem if you lose a major character early on, and then things might just snowball out of control from there. Nevertheless, there's a lot of good to be found in here, with the game providing everything you need for interesting tactical decisions. As of the time of writing this review, I've played both as Elsu's warband and as the sheriff, and I'm quite eager to see how the other 2 factions play as well. In conclusion, I find High Noon to be worthy of a respectable 8.4 out of 10. But we're not done yet. Firstly, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the full game is playable on Tabletopia. You have the standard version, which is publicly searchable and includes the base game. Or alternatively, if you head to the High Noon Discord, you'll find a link to try the playtest version, which has numerous expansions included as well. Both are completely free to play, so if you're interested in trying the game out yourself to see if it's to your liking, I'll be linking to both the public mod and the Discord channel in the description. As aforementioned, this game is very reminiscent of Star Wars Epic Duels, another lightweight tactical skirmish game with a very similar system of attacking and defending. And after reaching out to the developer, I can confirm that Epic Duels was indeed a major inspiration for High Noon, though they're certainly not without their differences. My biggest complaint about Epic Duels was that terrain felt pretty much inconsequential. This is not true of High Noon at all. Obstacles, walls, windows, and doors will all play a pivotal role in how you conduct your battles. I also find that High Noon handles minor characters much better than Epic Duels did. In Epic Duels, the characters all shared actions, which meant you almost never had a reason to want to activate those stormtroopers or battle droids. Why waste an action on them when you could give it to Yoda or Count Dooku instead? High Noon does a great job of fixing that problem by giving each figure its own action. If you're playing as the Roy Gang or the Rough Riders, you'll absolutely need to make good use of those minor characters if you want to win. That's not to say that Epic Duels didn't have any advantages over High Noon. There is of course the Star Wars license, which is pretty difficult to compete with. Also, there's the fact that in High Noon, once a character is dead, their cards are purely just dead weight. Although it was small, Epic Duels did actually have a purpose for those cards even once those characters were destroyed. All in all, I would definitely say that High Noon is the better game of the two, especially for hobbyists that want something a little more balanced. And of course, good luck actually finding a copy of Star Wars Epic Duels these days. If you're interested in purchasing High Noon, try it for yourself over Tabletopia, or learning more, links are included in the description. But what about you? What do you think of High Noon? What's your favorite Posse to play as? Any questions, remarks, or opposing points of view? Leave them in the comments down below. And please remember to like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell. Until next time, farewell, fellow fanatics. Thank you again for watching. I have plenty more to share with you if you're interested. You can click up here above my head to subscribe to my channel. You can click over here on my monitor to see the most recent video that I've worked on. Or if you prefer, you can click up here to open this mysterious vault and see what video that the YouTube algorithm has picked just for you.